You don't know what you are actually capable of until you go through something. Choose something wild and big and then take your time at it. You realize, like, oh, I can do this. What is really cool, it is the gateway to other things in your life. Bootcamp is scary to walk into, but when you just walk in and you do your first set of whatever that might be, I can do this. And then you just keep showing up. Good things take time to build. Give yourself a ton of grace because your journey is different than anybody else's.
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I am so thrilled about today's episode. Today we have Betsy. Betsy is a certified personal trainer, nutrition coach, and group trainer who owns and operates Fisher's Fit Body in Fishers, Indiana, with her husband, Jason. Fisher's Fit Body won Rookie of the Year and is approaching their second year of business in January of 2024. Betsy is also a mom to 3 kiddos, Graham, who's 12, Reese, 10, and Paige, who is 6. She is an ultra marathon runner, loves lifting and anything basketball. With a competitive nature, Betsy loves to push other moms in becoming their best versions of themselves through fitness and nutrition. As Betsy likes to say, Fisher's Fit Body is more than a gym. Betsy's team focuses on transforming as many people in their community as they can through fitness, nutrition, accountability, and hard work. So welcome, Betsy, to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited for today.
Yeah, me too. And I still remember chatting with you before you even opened your Fit Body location. And I can't believe that you are almost at 2 years.
Yeah, it's wild. It's been a really fast 2 years. I remember talking to you too. I was one of the people that called everybody that would give me their number. So I'm sure I had all the crazy questions for you and everybody else in the brand. But yeah, it's been a really fast 2 years and I'm excited to see what the future holds for sure.
Yeah, and you guys look like you're crushing it. And what I love so much about your journey is like you are in it. Like you are in the studio, you're working out with your clients, you're holding up the sign that says you crushed 250 sessions. Like you are a product of what you have built. Like you literally experience it every single day with our clients. And I think that's so inspiring for our clients, and it's so valuable for an owner because you get to witness like what they are going through day in and day out.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, this is hard. Life is hard in general. And if we are asking people to do hard things, we might as well do them too, right? So I love being there. Our community is great. Seeing transformations is awesome. So I love to be in the middle of it. I do have coaches that have to say, like, you're kind of in the way today. Like I need you to go over there. And so the team holds me accountable for that too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to dive into your fit body ownership journey and your own transformation story, how you manage it all with 3 kiddos, which I'm going to be writing down some tips because I need to learn everything. But before we do that, one of the reasons why I wanted Betsy to come on the show is because she recently completed something that I just think is so freaking impressive. It's so awesome. So she just ran a 32-mile race, 32 miles. Like a marathon is 26. She did 32, and it was in Indiana, northern Indiana, the Crazy Leg.
Mhm.
And I want you to talk about that because as someone who has done multiple half marathons, I know training takes a lot of time. And you have a business and you have 3 kids and you have all of the things going on. And
Totally.
here you decided to sign up for a 32-mile race. And I'm not going to lie, like when I saw some of your stuff on social media, like your training days, like 4 hours of running,
Yeah.
it looks like you were just like running through your neighborhood. I was so inspired. I'm like, I don't know how she's doing that. And so I want to unpack that. I want to talk about what inspired you to first sign up, but
Mhm.
then also what the training was like.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back just a couple of years, but it's going to be really fast for you. So back in
Hey.
2019, Jesse Itzler had the Big Ass Calendar Club is what it's called. And one of his trainings that he would do during his coaching meetings was about creating a misogi. So back in 2019, I had no idea what a misogi was. And Jesse explained, like, this is something that you need to do either physically, mentally, maybe you open a new business, but something that's super scary, very challenging, something that you've never thought that you could do before.
Mm.
And I've always been a runner. I came from a Division 1 basketball background, and I love to compete, but my body is aging and there are certain things I just can't do anymore. And running is something that relieves me of any kind of stress, which people find odd a lot. But for me, when I'm running, I think better. I'm really creative. I'm my most creative. And so I was like, all right, what is something wild? At first I thought, okay, I'm going to do a marathon. But I was like, everybody does a marathon. I'm going
Yeah.
to go just a bit more. I'm going to do a 50K, which is 32 miles. And so that's what kickstarted was this big Muskogee back in 2019. I did that in Missouri. I have lots of stories about that one. And then 2023 of October of this year, I decided like I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to do a different kind. I'm going to do a trail ultra marathon, which is much different than a flat land, right? Lots of
Yeah.
things. I didn't really train in any kind of trail racing before. So I just decided like I'm going to do this. I'm going to give myself 3 months to try to figure it out. And that's where the journey started for me for this specific ultra marathon.
Had no idea that you had already completed one.
Yeah,
I
I
did
did.
not know that. Oh
Yes.
my
Yeah, so
gosh.
now the goal for me is every 18 months I get the itch to do an
Okay.
ultra. So in 18 months from now, I'm going to really strive to do an actual 50 miler. I don't know where my headspace will be for that, but
Oh.
for sure, the 32 mile is actually a really great. It's a really great place in between a 50 and a marathon where you can push yourself just a little bit more.
Mhm.
And for me, I just really like learning more about myself than I ever thought that I could do these crazy wild races, right? So you have to train, right? We've got 3 kids, we have a business. How is this going to work? And it's really simple if you break it up. I just woke up super early and I ran majority of my hours when it was dark and the kids were sleeping. Or
Mhm.
if I could grab in a middle of the day run while they were at school, I would grab 2 hours and run. Most of my running happened on the weekends where the kids were sleeping in. And so I
Yeah.
would wake up at 4:30, I'd grab my flashlight, I looked like all sorts of things out there. And then I would run. I'd, run 14 miles out, 14 miles back. And um, yeah, my kids were super great with me. My husband would make sure I had a big meal ready to go when I got home. And I don't know, you just make it work, right?
Yeah. I am so impressed by your grit. Like I mean, I've known you now for 2 years, but, like, you just have that, like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm just gonna do it mentality, whereas I feel like a lot of people, they think about doing something like this, and they talk about it, and they talk about it, and maybe they do start training, but they end up talking themselves out of it because it's hard.
So
And
hard.
I know, like, as you're telling us the story of training, like, I know you had to have those hard days. Were there any times where you thought, like, I don't think I'm gonna do this, like, maybe I should just delay it or postpone it to next year?
Definitely, most days. And I'm sure many people won't admit that, but it's true.
Yeah,
There are most days that I didn't want to get out and run 17 miles.
yeah.
Going to be long. You have to learn how to eat, how to fuel. You have
Mhm.
to run even if it's raining. I live in Indiana, so sometimes when you trained, it was cold and wintry one day, and then it's nice and 80 degrees. So like
Right.
the weather is a real tricky situation too. But for me, when I say I'm going to do something, I just find a way to make it happen. And so I don't know, you just figure it out. I tried really hard back in 2019 not to miss things for my kids. And so my training back then even was really kind of around what our livelihood was, right? So this year I have a 12, a 10, and a 6-year old, and the 12 and 10-year old are very into sports. And so I coach too, my kids. And so for me, navigating through that just meant I had to really look at the calendar, decide where can I find a 4 hour window. It was usually really early in the morning.
Yeah. Now, did you find, and I have found myself feeling like this I did a half marathon 2 months ago. And long story short, it was supposed to be a full marathon. I was training. I got up to doing 20 miles. And then the race that I had registered for, we had a scheduling conflict and I wasn't able to make it up to Michigan, which is where the race was.
Okay.
And so I postponed it to next year. So hopeful that we can work it out for next year. But anyways, I was like, okay, I've been training, so I have to find a race to run. And I ended up finding a half marathon that was local that
Great.
I just went ahead and did. So my training didn't go to waste. But what I found that is when I was in that training period during like those 16 weeks where I was really focusing on my training, I was more focused on everything else in my life too, because I had to schedule my day so much in a way that like I knew exactly when I was going to get my workout in, exactly when I was going to get my run in. I had to fuel, as you mentioned, like I had to make sure I had my meals planned out. I was doing more meal prepping, and I was so laser focused on making sure I hit my training plan that it also made me more focused on my business, on my family, on my sleep. And so everything kind of fell into place. Did you experience that as well?
Well, yeah, 1,000%. I think like anything in life, when you're dialed in, everything is dialed in.
Yeah.
It has to be like that, right? I was probably a better mom during that time. My current mother always says, Betsy, it's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of time that you have with your kids. Like, in
Mhm.
this business, you're gone a lot in the beginning, and it's all about quality. So for me, during any kind of training for any race, it's that mindset of, okay, I've got 3 hours with my kids today. How are we maximizing this? What are we doing as soon as pickup is over? Where are we going? How are we fitting in that homework before practice starts? What are we doing? Are we going on a family walk? Are we going outside? What is it? And so you do have to think further ahead in time to make sure you can fit it all in. Same goes for the business. What programs are being run? Are all of the coaches staffed? Where do they need help? How do you pull them along and make them not feel left out? Our training, when you're a runner, it has to almost be on the back burner in a sense, which sounds crazy because you are focused on everything else. You just have to fit that in where you can,
Right.
I
Right.
think. And so, yeah, you do have to get laser focused. Otherwise, like, you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what kind of tips would you give someone who maybe they're not training for an ultrathon, but maybe they want to run their first 5K,
Sure.
or maybe they even want to just start making going to the gym a part of their routine and stay consistent with that? What kind of tips would you give someone that is having a hard time staying consistent and to just really stay focused?
Yeah, a lot of things. So I'm going to start with running and then kind of maneuver into boot camp.
Yeah.
When it comes to running, I think you just have to start, whether it's walking for 10 minutes and running for two, whether it's working up to running a full 10 minutes and then walking. You really just have to give yourself some grace in the whole span of any type of fitness, really any kind of health and wellness journey, is give yourself a ton of grace because your journey is different than anybody else's. And it's really you versus you, which is why running is so cool, right? When you
Mhm.
are running 32 miles, you are losing toenails. You can feel them in your socks. Your shoes are wet because it rained. You hit a wall and you're tired and your hips aren't moving. Your knees are locking up. You have to go to a different space. Well, the same thing is true when you're doing your first mile. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in a different headspace. And so I would just encourage people to choose something wild and big and then take your time at it. I'm a big fan of walking, jogging, and running and mixing it in when you're training. So that's like my runner's mindset, but it
Yeah.
also translates over into boot camp in general. Boot camp is scary to walk into. It's fast paced. There's fun music going around. There's a lot of people that you don't know. It can be terrifying, but when you just walk in and you do your first set of whatever that might be, you realize like, oh, I can do this. I can
Yeah.
do this, and then you just keep showing up, and I think that's really majority of the battle.
Yeah, just keep showing up and just remembering for me, like I have to remind myself that every workout and every day is not going to be like the best day ever. Like even this morning, like I only had 30 minutes to work out, which we know like 30 minutes is fine, but I was working out at home. So it wasn't at boot camp. It wasn't as fast paced. It wasn't as fun. I didn't have that motivation from other people, which I love. And so I'm like, okay, today's not going to be like the best workout ever, but I'm going to do something because it's going to help me feel good.
Mhm.
And it just, I'm going to stay consistent with it. Like it is something that I said I was going to do today. And I
Yep.
think like that's such a valuable point to remember is just show up even when you don't want to, and even when it's not your best, just still put in the reps, put in the work.
Yeah, I've always heard people say that in my past, and I don't think it actually clicked with me until I started doing these types of races. And here's why I say that. You don't know what you are actually capable of until you go through something, right? And when you can show up when you're super tired, it's pitch black at 5 a.m., it's pitch black at 6 p.m. in Indiana now, too, right? When you didn't used to do that in your prior life and you start to do these hard things, what is really cool, it is the gateway to other things in your life. So when an illness pops up, you're like, I lost 5 toenails. I couldn't move. I didn't think that I could run another 10 miles in a race. I got through that. I can get through this thing over here,
Yeah.
right? You build some grit and some callus along the way. The same thing is true for a 30-minute workout. There
Hmm.
are many days I don't want to go, and I love fitness.
Right.
Imagine somebody who doesn't, right? And so you just have to go to prove to yourself, like, oh, I can do hard things. And if you reframe it about that, I think it can be fun. And then you realize years later, like, I'm so glad I stuck with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. And that's a great segue into, this next section. I want to talk about your Fit Body Bootcamp ownership journey, because clearly opening up your own business, that is scary. That is hard. That is taking a huge risk, which is something that seems like you enjoy. And
Yeah.
so walk us through how you even got started with Fit Body. How'd you discover Fit Body?
Yeah. Like many people in the brand, I think it started with my own journey, right? So in 2017, I had my youngest, my last baby, and had a C-section. And I remember walking into the hospital and asked my husband, like, what does that scale say on that bed? Because I don't know if you know this, ladies, but it says your weight. And I'm 5'4" for reference. He was like, you are 232 today. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. I started planning right then and there how I was going to get back into Betsy's shape that I'm used to. The
Mhm.
day that we left, I was 213. And I said, okay, as soon as I'm cleared after this C section, I'm getting after it. And so I looked for my own coach and happened to fall in line with Chris and Heidi Powell. They did that extreme weight loss journey years ago on TV. I don't know if you remember them, but they had a
Yeah.
program, and I worked out in my basement with a coach that I got aligned with for 30 minutes every day for 6 months, lost 40 pounds or so, and learned how to eat, learned how to move my new mom bod. And that really kickstarted the journey. Excuse me, move forward another year. I met a coach through First Form, and I started in on their program. And what I started to realize is I cannot do this by myself.
Yeah.
I tried, and I need a coach. Like, I need a coach and I know all the things. And so then I decided I'm going to learn this to help other women too. And so I got my certification in personal training and nutrition coaching and macro coaching. I started doing my own online coaching while holding a full-time job, sales position. For reference on that, I used to drive the state of Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio to sell dental supplies for like 15 years. It was wild.
Oh.
And I decided to also start training women, and I did that for about a year, and then just decided I am in the wrong vehicle and I need to be over here. I need more fulfillment in my soul, selfishly.
Mhm.
I need
Yeah.
to help other women. And so that's what I did. I quit the nice six-figure job, the gold handcuffs, as we say, and I decided to do my due diligence. I started going around my community and working at other franchises because I wanted to know what it is like to be a client.
Right.
What do other coaches provide? And where can I be better?
Mm.
And so I did that for about 6 months before I decided what brand I wanted to fall in line with.
Mm. I love how you mentioned selfishly you decided to do this, because we talk a lot in the fitness industry and at FitBody how we're on a mission to help other people.
Sure.
But truthfully, as an owner, as a franchise partner, it does actually start as our own selfish reason for wanting to get up and do something that we love every single day. And at least that's how it started for me. And when I started doing that and when I opened my first location, that is when I realized, wow, this isn't about me. It's about our clients, because here I am. Health and fitness is a huge part of my life. It always has been. It will continue to be. But for other people, they don't even know the possibilities that are out there for themselves. They don't know how they can wake up and feel every single day, and they need us. And so it is kind of crazy how most fitness professionals, it does start out of our own selfish reason for like, I love fitness. I want to do this every day for a living. And then we quickly realize, like, whoa, this goes so much further than just taking care of ourselves. It's like there's so many people out there that need us.
Yeah.
Talk to me about when you were a client at some of those other fitness franchises, what the differences that you saw between like Fitbody as a brand and what you were experiencing there, and why you decided to go with Fitbody.
So, hands down, other coaches at other facilities would stand around, and I'm going to say, not in a negative way, but how do I say this without offending anybody? You know, when you walk into a Verizon store, for example, and there's a guy holding an iPad in the corner, kind of a thing, right?
You're just standing there.
Just standing there,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of scrolling. That is what I felt like as a client at these other locations. You had one coach standing stagnant with a room full of 20 or 30 people playing music and giving you like a let's go and a countdown.
Yeah.
And I remember as a client, like, I can do better than that because I had coaches that did better than that for me. And
Hmm.
I know that everybody in this room could have such a better experience and probably get much better results if somebody was
Yeah.
really like focused into them. Right. And
Mhm.
so it was a pretty consistent, no matter where I went, that was the vibe. And I actually was like this close into buying into one of those franchises until I was driving in my 9 to 5 job and heard a podcast from Bedros and Bryce saying, this is our culture. This is what we do. And I was like, whoa, I got to go learn about that.
Yeah.
I remember I was driving from Indianapolis to Detroit and I called my husband. I was like, whoa, we cannot do this other thing. We got to go with this brand over here. And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm actually going to Michigan. There is a boot camp in Michigan. It happened to be Barrett's location. And I'm going to go take a class. I'm going to go. I'm going to see what's about. And then I was like, oh, there's another one in Auburn, Michigan. I'm going there. I'm going to go check that out. And so I just kind of hopped around and realized, like, okay, this is where I need to be. And that's really what started it.
That's so awesome. I
Yeah.
didn't know that story. That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
great. And for anyone listening, that's new to the Fitbody brand, like we have right now, and I always like mess up the number because we're growing so fast. I think we have close to 270 locations today, as I'm recording this, 270 locations nationwide. And if you are like, a client at one location and you're out of town, you can always go visit another location. And it's so fun to do that because we all try to replicate the same culture and community in every location, but there's always going to be like something that's slightly different in each one. So it's always fun to check out new
Ye-
locations.
Absolutely. I think there's a real level of care at FitBody that I didn't get anywhere else. And that was across the board. You know, when we have our world conferences and things, I like to go to other fit bodies mostly to learn.
Yeah.
I'm a sponge. I like to learn from other people because I know I probably have these massive gaps that I just can't see because I'm in it. And so
Right.
when you go around, you know, at the end of the day, the core values really come down to like people just care. People
Mhm.
care. And when you're trying to lose weight and you're unhappy with the way you look naked in the mirror, you hate how your jeans fit, you're a mom that just had her third baby and is like, what is this body? This is interesting. Or like me approaching 40 in less than 6 months saying like, oh my goodness, I'm perimenopausal. What is this new thing happening? But
Yeah.
if you have coaches that are surrounding that are like, I got you, we're going to figure this out together. It's a little more calming and not as depressing really to think about like, I got to do this all by myself.
Right, right. It's not as isolating.
Yeah.
I do feel that when you become a client at FitBody, at least for me, like when I became a client, I was at a different stage of my life. Like I didn't have children yet. I was right out of college and I was trying to find like that sense of community and accountability that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I found that at FitBody as a client. And I felt like everything I was going through, whether my situation was feeling unique to me or not, somebody else was going through something or something that was similar. And we kind of bonded with that. Like we
Yeah.
bonded on that together at boot camp.
Yeah.
And so I had the support from the coaches. I had that accountability there to like show up and like work out harder. And if I wasn't showing up, they were like, where are you? But then when I was there, I also had that community and that camaraderie with the clients I was working out with. And that really helped me. And it just really spilled out into every other area, not just like my fitness journey. It
Mhm.
just made me happy. It made me show up as my best self, even though I wasn't living my best life at the time. Like similar to you, I was in a very unfulfilling career, and like I was searching for like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life?
Yeah.
But boot camp at least was that part that I was like, okay, I love this. At least I'm happy here.
Yeah. I think with that too, there are lots of days where you're like, okay, I got what I wanted, as a member's perspective. Like, oh, I got what I wanted here. I lost my 30 pounds. I'm feeling good. I'm going to go do something new because I need something new.
Hmm.
The thing that we always try to convey to members is like, you can only do a bicep curl so many ways. You can only do upper pull push sort of thing so many ways. You need people that understand your story and are trying to get you to a next level, and they know where you could go. And there might be days that it gets boring because guess
Yeah.
what? It is. This
Right.
is for the rest of your life. You
Hmm.
can't just stop moving, right? Like we
Right.
need to build more muscle for longevity, right? We need to learn how to eat right majority of the time so we can have the cake with our kids at and not feel bad about it. Right?
Yeah.
That's a real mindset shift and that takes time and patience. And so we really I think without a group training facility of some sort, you're not going to get that. You're going to get bored and you're going to keep quitting and you're in a hamster wheel.
Oh, totally. Totally. And the longevity part, I love how you mentioned that because I too talk about that a lot at boot camp. Fit body for me, like when I look at our clients and even myself, fit body is designed for someone to do this for a lifetime. Like, we don't want you to go to the gym for an hour and a half, 5 days a week, or every day. We want you to go 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. And we want you to just commit to that
Yep.
forever. It can be a part of your lifestyle. I think what we see a lot is these people that go into other fitness studios and they do this 60-minute long workout that beats their body into the ground, and then they become burnout, and maybe they do see results like they lose 10, 15 pounds in 6 weeks, great, but they can't stay consistent with it,
Right.
and they're so tired and they're exhausted and they're like, well, how the heck am I supposed to do this? And then they give up and then they gain all the weight back.
Yeah.
And at boot camp, that is one thing that I always tell people is like, please don't look at this as a quick fix. This is the long game. Like,
Yep.
you are in this for the long game. I want you to commit to yourself, commit for the next year. Like, take the next year and see what results that you see. And then it's going to be so much easier to stick with it as long as you have that mindset in the beginning. If
Totally.
you're looking at this as like, I'm going to lose the weight in 6 weeks and then I'm going to be great. Like, no, you're going to have to keep doing whatever you did to lose that weight in order to keep it off.
Yeah. And I think so I grew up in the 80s, or I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 84. My mom, this is not any kind of negativity, but I think there's a lot of women that are within like a 10-year span before or after that have experienced that. I watched my mom yo-yo.
Oh, me too. 100%.
Okay. And those are old habits that she's currently breaking, which are awesome.
Yeah.
I, however, just don't want that yo-yo so that my girls, I have two girls and a son who is equally important. I don't want them to see that and think that that is normal. This is a lifelong process,
Right.
right? And it takes time, patience, and grace for yourself. Whether it's 30 minutes or a 60-minute group session, you have 24 hours to move your body. That's just a very small part of your day. What we try to teach at Fisher's Fit Body is what are you doing with the rest of your day? Are you moving? Are you drinking your water? Are
Right.
you smiling? Are you getting outside? Those things are really important. And I don't think very many people talk about that.
Mm-mm.
And they're so hyper focused on this 30-minute, 45-minute, 60 minutes. Like, really, all said and done, it's not a lot. Either way you go, it's super important for your strength training and getting your heart rate up in that short amount of time. But we also want you to move your body outside of this too. And we're going to teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Mm. I love it. I feel like we could probably just do another episode on like this is the long game. Commit to the lifestyle. Commit to it for a lifetime. So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your journey as an owner. So from a client to an owner, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I'm very honest too. I will tell you that the last 2 years have been the hardest 2 years of my life, yet the most rewarding. And have also been a time for me to realize that my husband and I can do this together.
Mm,
We're married, we do this together, and he's now fully into the business as well. And that is very challenging to not mix the two 100% of the time. I
mm,
will say, do what's best for your marriage if you are, in fact, going into this venture together. We happen to enjoy talking about business. We enjoy dreaming. We enjoy this is our life, it's our kids' life. And so for us, it works really well. That does not mean that there are hard days and we are yelling at one another in the house and at the gym and then, don't go to bed mad, essentially, right? But when you start out, there's so many things that you're hyper focused on that just don't matter. The paint on the wall, what kind of equipment are we having? It's honestly, if I could redo it, I would just go all in on focusing on my members' feelings and
yeah.
less on how much equipment I have. That was a
Mm,
very first lesson that I learned.
yeah.
Also, biggest lesson is you cannot compare yourself as a business owner or like we talk about in weight loss to any other business owner. You have your own journey. Good things take time to build.
Mm,
And you do you on that. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. I have a very good friend in the brand who, gosh, she probably has 150 more members than I do. I'm so happy for her. We do not compare any of that. We talk about the business side of it. Profitability, revenue, what's working, how many results are you getting? We focus on separate things, right? I wish I would have understood that in the beginning in our first year compared to year two.
mm,
Those are some of the right out of the gate things that I think about and I remember. But I think patience, consistency, caring for your team and developing your team is so important. You have to be a master delegator in this business, probably in any business is my assumption, but this is what I know. You need to be a master delegator. And if you do not trust your team, you cannot delegate. And then that's when I think problems occur. So I would say we've gotten better at those things. We're still working very hard on those things, but we've got a great team in place and it just takes a ton of time.
yeah.
And you can do this if you're somebody that's thinking and you're on the bubble here of do I do this? Do I not? I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I've been married for almost, oh my goodness, 16 years almost. We started later in the game, mid 30s. My husband's 8 years older. Like we started late in the game compared to most people, and you can still do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of power in that. Much like my ultra marathon running, you can do hard things. There's going to be hard days. You're going to get kicked in the butt a lot, a lot, a lot. But the reward of, my kids go to Catholic school. My daughter's doing a reading tomorrow. I get to go. I wouldn't have been able to do that because I would have been on the road driving around the Midwest in my
Yeah.
previous life. That's the trade-off. I often ask my kids, like, are you guys happy with what mom and dad are doing? Let's do a check-in. Are you okay? I know I'm gone. This is busy. It's wild. How are you feeling? Do you want us to quit? Like, where are you at? Like, I'm very like,
Yeah.
crazy. And
Give me feedback.
yeah, I need the feedback. My middle kid, Reese, always says, I love our Fit Body Bootcamp. I love telling my friends that we have members. I love XYZ member. They can name members. I love our coaches. And I'm like, okay, we are doing the right. Because you
Yeah.
have moments like that you need some reassurance along the way too. So I don't know if I even answered your question at this point.
No, you did. And I don't know why this makes me like kind of emotional, but like, oh, like my kids, I grew my business and grew my family at the same time. And though like I started this journey earlier in life than you did, like kind of a similar experience. Like last night, we were in the middle of watching the Polar Express, and Sophia says, do you want to watch me do 13 burpees? And I was like, sure, I'll watch you do
Yeah.
13 burpees. And so Stone and I are like sitting on the bed and she's like, okay, count. And she just like starts doing burpees. And then he's like, well, I want to do a burpee. And he doesn't even really know what a burpee is. So
Yeah.
he just starts going down and doing them. And
Yeah.
then she goes, okay, now count how many squats I can do. And I'm like, where do you learn this stuff? And like,
From
to be honest,
you.
for me, yeah.
Yes.
And like on a Saturday, like she loves going to Fit Body so much. Like we used to make it a tradition where we would get a big box of donuts and bring it in. And like any kid that was there, they could have a donut.
Mhm.
But it got to the point where there were so many kids there that it was unpredictable on how many donuts I needed.
Yeah.
And so like one Saturday we went and there was like 15 kids there. And I was like, Sophia, you can't eat the donuts until afterwards because there's not one for everybody.
Yeah. I love it. We do, we do similar things. I'll be honest, I'm really proud of you that you do that. I used to shield my kids because I thought I was supposed to do something and check a box. When I'm learning as I age and as we age in this business that we're in, I realize like the more that I involve my family, it's actually much better. So
Yeah,
when we do protein pancakes like once a month. And my husband will get it out. He'll do it. Our girls will help serve, and they just think that's the coolest thing in the world.
that's so
Right.
fun.
Or they'll sit behind the desk and they think they're checking people in on the iPad. I don't think we'll realize what that means until years to come. But
Mm,
I'm going to just stick with that and continue to do that with our family. And that might not be the most traditional thing that families do now, but I've realized I don't care. Like,
yeah,
this is what we're doing. I know we're making a difference in our community. I know that we are going to raise really great kids, and I want them around I hope they become gym rats, you know?
yeah,
And if they don't, that's okay too. But I think I used to think I couldn't involve my kids as much because we were business owners. And it was the exact opposite.
yeah.
Big lesson learned.
Yeah, I love that so much. This is so great. Oh, this is awesome. Yeah, I mean, even yesterday, another, addition to this, like my son, so I pretty much work from home now with my
Mhm.
role with the body and helping other owners. And when I'm in my office, like he usually knows he's not allowed to come in because I'm in a meeting. And so I'll usually lock the door. And last night I came down to have dinner. I had like a later meeting in the afternoon and he's like, "Mommy, you have your meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I had my meeting." And he's like, "You done? You finished with your meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like I have set boundaries with my kids, but I also have kind of intertwined my work life and my family in a way that like they know where I'm at, they know what I'm doing, and they know that like when I'm done and I'm all in on them.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about, quality versus quantity earlier. I'm very much focused on that too because like reality is like we can't be there for our kids 24/7. It doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home mom,
Work.
work from home mom. It's like trying to find that quality over quantity and making sure you're focusing on that can be really challenging. But I will say, like, I think the thing that's helped me the most is communicating to
Mhm.
my kids, like what I'm doing, where I'm at, like what the schedule is going to be. Even though they're still young, they're starting to understand,
Yeah.
but they understand that, like, when I'm out of my office, my phone's away.
Yeah.
I'm focused on you, and we're focused on this quality time together.
Yeah, and that's a really great reminder. For me, we do we have our morning and evening blocks, and I still will sometimes get wrapped up in watching the evening wrap up in Slack and trying to listen, and then I'll like peek over on the couch and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
put it down." Put it down, put it down, put it down. And I think over time, as a new entrepreneur for that matter, you just learn what works for your family. Again, you just can't compare yourself to anybody else. And no one's really truly going to understand, just like you're not going to understand somebody else's life either.
Right.
You have no idea what's going on and what they're juggling. But it's
Yeah.
definitely doable. I'm a big Jesse Itzler, Todd Durkin, and Layla and Alex Hermosi follower. I would say students. I'm students
Yeah.
of what they say. And I've taken bits and pieces of what they say and I've put it together to kind of formulate our own thing here at the Kwiatkowski house. And one thing is for sure true: time keeps moving no matter what. So
Mm,
you better plan in things with your family just as much as you better plan things in for your professional life. They're equal.
yes.
Like, they're equal. And that is okay. I've also learned that, you don't need these massive morning routines or evening routines to be this successful person. You just got to work. And if you
Mhm.
just like simplify it that way, I used to get in my head because I can tend to dream and float and go all sorts of directions. I used to think, okay, if I'm not making my bed in the morning, I'm not doing a cold plunge, I'm not doing this, I'm not going to be this. Says who? A
Yeah,
TikToker? I don't
right.
know. That's just not true. I will let our history showcase numbers and what makes us successful. And I can tell you this, just waking up and getting things done has been way more successful for us by just keeping it simple. Just do the
Yeah.
work, get it done. You'll be amazed by how much time opens up on your calendar.
Mm.
And putting in things for your family and make it a real priority on your calendar. Like it matters.
Yes. Yes. And the time will continue to go on and the to-do list will never end.
Ever.
And you have to have like you said, schedule time for your family, but you also have to like cut yourself off every single day because time will go on
Sure.
and you're going to look back. And if you were so focused on, let's say, I mean, yes, we got to be focused on our business, but if
Yeah.
you're so focused on something that's happening in your business and you're more focused on that than watching what's happening in your family, your kids are going to grow up, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And you don't want to look back and say, I missed this time because I was so focused on this one thing. I was so distracted and I didn't learn how to set those boundaries for myself. And time will continue to go on. I actually had a conversation with another owner the other day about that. She, similar to you, she's almost 2 years in, has two small children. And she asked me, she's like, how do you structure your day in a way where, or what did you do when you were in my situation, only a year into ownership with the kids? Like, what did you do? What did your day look like? And I said, if I could give you any advice, it is that the emails like at 8:30 at night when you're putting your kids to bed, that email, it's still gonna be there in the morning unless it's probably not a level 10 problem.
Hmm.
You're giving it level 10 energy.
Hmm.
If it's a level 1 problem, keep it in your inbox, respond to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do that, and I was the queen of responding to everything in real time.
Hmm.
Like, everything was a level 10 problem, and
Yeah.
I actually just heard, like, the level 10, level 1 comparison recently, from one of my mentors, and it had me thinking, I'm like, "Gosh, how much energy do we spend sometimes on level 1 problems, level 1 situations in life?"
Mhm.
And we treat it like it is a level 10, like it is gonna make or break our world, and we need to let that go.
Yeah, you gotta let that, yeah. We all fall to that, I'm sure, but we absolutely need to let that go. I definitely do that, have done that. And it just, again, it takes time and
Right.
patience to learn that
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah.
When you're first opening in your first 3, 6, 12, 18 months, you feel like if I don't do this now, we are in trouble versus setting the boundaries and the tone up front. So, like, those are some things that you could definitely practice it and do
Yeah.
to make that not a 12-month lesson.
Yeah. Well, Betsy, this has been so awesome. Again, you and I, we need to do another episode on
For
something
sure.
else
I
because
would
we
love
can
to.
keep going on all the things. But I know that our listeners are going to get so much value from this episode. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you got to follow Fisher's Fit Body Bootcamp. That is everything for Instagram and Facebook. And then if you can figure out how to spell my name, I'm Betsy.Kwiatkowski on Instagram and TikTok. And so I do a lot of fun things there. I definitely do my best to live my life and showcase the things that matter to me. And that's my family, my faith, my fitness. And I love to coach kids, fit body boot camp stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, a little bit of business dabbled in there, you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, you guys, thanks so much.